Here we go. Cool. All right, guys. Oh, man, this is going to be fun. Appreciate y'all being here. We got my man Brian Stavely from Dose of Reality YouTube channel. Let's see if we're on Rumble yet. Not yet. Brian, you got a Rumble channel, don't you?
I do, and actually they've made a lot of improvements in the last few weeks, so it's looking pretty promising over there.
It's getting better, man. It's getting better, but it's still like when I try to stream off live, it takes us like a long delay, and I can't ever. Purdue won. Oh, Purdue got put out last night. Purdue lost. Okay, so Jill says, yeah, Purdue got smoked, I think. I don't know. You follow college basketball at all, Brian?
No, I don't. I used to be really into sports, and we could talk about that a little bit. My whole thing was I went to broadcasting school to be a sports broadcaster.
I remember that. Yeah, up in Massachusetts or something like that, or
yeah, around 2005. So, but in the last several years, I kind of disconnected from a lot of it.
Dude, I tell you, man, I completely disconnected. Except I got 4 kids. My youngest, he just started to love sports, and ever since then, I've been watching. I don't watch it that much, but we follow it together because hanging out with your kid. But dude, I used to be the biggest freaking sports fan ever, man, and I just, I mean, it literally killed me when the Patriots lost in the first Super Bowl against the Giants. That freaking
and they ruined the old one. Were you talking about when it ruined the perfect season? Or?
Yeah, the first half. Dude, I said, why am I so into this? This is just grown men making millions of dollars. Why do I care, dude? And yet I was really mad. And I said, dude, there's something wrong. Anyway, so I started getting out of it. And I'm not all that into it now, but my kid just told me that number 1 seeds have already lost, and number 2 seeds have already lost too. So, yeah, so we got some guys on here. Penn State, Marie says Penn State is glad Purdue lost. That's 7. Okay. Right on. All right, so guys, I want to share, and Brian, you can share a screen later on too, right? You have the ability to share a screen. I think I got to make you the host, but I don't even know. Do I have to make you no? That's not.
No, you don't have to do anything. When I go to share it, you'll just have to approve it at the bottom of the screen and put it up in the feed.
The first thing I want to do, I want to go here, and I'm going to share my screen for a second with everybody, and I'm going to show you something that. Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. Everyone knows there's Stouffer's stovetop stuffing instead of potatoes, my friends. You all know this. I know this. We all know this. When I was growing up, they had commercials for Stouffer's stovetop stuffing instead of potatoes. In fact, I just watched a YouTube one that had Ali Sheedy on it from 1980. It wasn't Stouffer's, though, because Stouffer's stovetop stuffing doesn't exist. It never existed. What the hell is that? We know for a fact. So if it never existed, why is there this article that says Stouffer's stovetop stuffing, the perfect go-to comfort food? But yet it doesn't exist. Yeah, well, I'll show you right here. This lady says, no, Stouffer's stovetop stuffing, it did not exist. It's a lie. Why the hell would we say we all remember the Stouffer's stovetop stuffing? I'm growing up in the 80s. I'm going to put Stouffer's in front of stovetop stuffing just on my own. I'm just going to do that. No, that's what I'm saying. It's nuts. And yet we know it was Stouffer's. We're not going to sit there and say, I'm just going to say it's Stouffer's stovetop stuffing because that's the way I remember it. All these freaking people remember that. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. So let me stop sharing. So
by the way, when you say it doesn't exist, it's actually never existed. Is the thing. So for anybody not following along yet, like if you were to go and look up the history of Stouffer's stovetop stuffing and when maybe it went to another company or went out of business or anything like that, you won't find any history of that because in this reality now, it's never been Stouffer's.
And that's what set me off on this. I said, wait a second. Because I remember, Brian, we didn't have a TV. I'm from the 70s. I was born in 1970. So in the 70s, we didn't have a TV. In the 80s, we finally got probably 78, we got our first TV, 79. And so we couldn't watch it much, but we watched it. I was intent on watching it because it's like the introduction to it's like an introduction to computer something. You know what I'm saying? And I remember that freaking advertising because I used to watch football. I used to, when I skipped school or whatever, I was home from school, you'd watch the soap operas and whatnot, and the commercials had an impact on you. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And so before I came across you, maybe I came across you. I can't remember. When someone said there's no such thing, maybe it was you. I said, what? Stouffer's stovetop stuffing instead of potatoes. And then when people say, no, it didn't exist, I'm like, how could you possibly say that? Why would I ever remember that? It's nuts. What was your first experience with this whole Mandela effect?
My first experience with the whole Mandela effect, well, there's two answers to that. Being presented to me as something that no longer exists in this reality, it was the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
But when looking back, I experienced a change in about the year 2000, but I just didn't pick up on it and realize what it was until 15 years later, you know? But, you know, the Berenstain was my first, but the Stouffer's one is huge. And to elaborate a little bit on that is, you know, that's the whole reason I knew who Stouffer's was as a company, was because of their stuffing. And I realized they make other food and lots of frozen food. And I later on got into getting the Stouffer's French bread pepperoni pizza based on the fact that they knew how to make the stuffing real good. That's why I trusted them to buy the pizza. And not only that, this is a little thing I like to say. If I were to, you know, lock 100 people in a grocery store, it's just a random saying, people, because you get 100 different varying adults that don't know each other. If you could just shut the doors on a grocery store and ask 100 people in there, what's the most famous brand of stovetop stuffing?
Right.
What do you think? I mean, almost 100 are going to say Stouffer's. So almost 100. So this is like, you know, well over 90% of people you could pull anywhere on a lot of these changes all have the same exact memory as us. And we're not losing our minds. Something's happening to this reality. And not only does my memory match yours, and likely most of the people in the chat, we didn't really pull them in the beginning and ask them, but they probably all remember stovetop stuffing. I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but I already know that most of you remember stovetop stuffing. It's never existed in this reality, yet our memories all corroborate each other. We have anchor memories of why we remember these things, like you with the jingle on the commercial, and me with why I would trust them to buy their French bread pizza. And then on top of it, if we were just misconstruing it from one company to another, why are we all making the exact same alleged mistake? Why there's so many companies out there that make food?
100%. All right, so you're from Lowell, the big one, another big one. Tell us about Lowell, Massachusetts, and one of the most famous guys from Lowell.
Yeah, sure. So this could be the number one Mandela effect, like at least in America. So I'm from a place in Massachusetts called Lowell, Massachusetts, and one of the biggest celebrities to ever come out of there is Ed McMahon. Now, I'm sure all you people here are familiar with Ed McMahon for doing the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson for about 30 years. He also did Star Search. But one of his most famous gigs was working for a sweepstakes company. Now, I want you guys all in chat to type the name of the sweepstakes company. Nobody use Google or anything like that. Just be all what you remember on everything we asked tonight. And I'm going to show you guys something pretty phenomenal.
Yep. Okay. So who was Ed McMahon's sweepstakes company, guys? You guys remember this? And I know you guys do because most of my audience is older and they've been around for a little bit. So type in the chat if you remember Ed McMahon, who was the sweepstakes company? All right, so let that go for a couple minutes. And now looks like we're on Rumble now. So good. All right, Carson's on Rumble. Sweet. Only thing about Rumble, I can never tell how many people are on there. It's the weirdest thing.
You have to, if you refresh your Rumble browser window, you got to refresh it once after it launches. And then underneath, it'll tell you how many are watching underneath.
Oh, there you go. All right, cool. Yeah, right on. All right, sweet. Yeah. All right.
All right, now I'm going to read the answers. They're coming in slow now because I know they're on a delay. So we have 3 answers so far. We got Publishers Clearinghouse. Yeah. Publishers Clearinghouse.
Can you see your chat too?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. All right, cool. Yeah, right on.
So we have 3 people that say Publishers Clearinghouse.
5.
One with the initials. If you guys remember, you can use the initials. That's fine. I'll know what you mean. So here's the thing.
6 people. Publishers Clearinghouse.
So, and it's unanimous so far. It's like it almost, guys. Doesn't it almost sound like a dumb question? It almost sounds like why would you even ask me that? Of course, it's Publishers Clearinghouse. And again, from my hometown. But let's talk about it. Now in this reality, not only has stovetop stuffing from Stouffer's, not only has Stouffer's stovetop stuffing never existed, Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse in this reality at all.
It's nuts.
It's totally nuts. And he's from my hometown, okay? Like, and he doesn't need to be from my hometown for me to know. Look at these people on from my hometown. They all know
Right.
Not one of them put the correct answer of what it's always been in this reality, the sweepstakes company that he worked for. Now we're gonna take it to another level. I'm gonna ask you guys another question in a minute. But first off, I remember the envelopes coming to my house with the outline of his face and the outline of the house for the PCH logo. It was on the mail, right? Exactly. Look at the people in the chat. On the mail, on the mail. It was on the mail. To start, you would never be able to find that. It's gone from reality. He's never had an affiliation with that company. Okay. But not only do I remember it, not only does Josh remember it, not only do you all remember it, I mean, you guys have no idea how many people I've asked this and how many times this has been done in parodies and skits on all different TV shows. Oh, Ed McMahon, Publishers Clearinghouse. Now, in this reality, it's always been a different company that he worked for called American Family Publishing. Okay, American Family Publishing. So before you're ready to just throw out all your experience and all your memory and how you knew he was on that PCH envelope and accept this nonsense that it was just another company and maybe you mixed up the lettering, right? I want you to think about an image in your head. When you think of the image of Ed McMahon and doing work for Publishers Clearinghouse, now AFP, like I said, what image comes to your mind, people? I want you to think about that. What image comes to your mind? What exactly did he do for this company? And I know they're on a bit of a delay. We'll wait a second, but we'll give it like 10 seconds. But
so
did you
Ed McMahon? So the question is, what was Ed McMahon doing for that company? Is basically just so we can spend some time for the delay to kick in. Right on.
Yeah. So I think it's been long enough. So if you guys, because they'll have the image instantly, the iconic image of Ed McMahon, and I've asked people on the street this on camera. Everybody you could imagine, all walks of life, we all have the same memory. Did you say going to people's doors with a giant check and balloons? Now here's the problem. Maybe they can convince you got the companies wrong, which is ridiculous. Almost nobody's even heard of AFP. I'm not saying they didn't exist, but even with the other sweepstakes company, Ed McMahon never went to Winners' doors with a giant check and balloons. He was a spokesman and did television commercials, never went to anybody's doors with giant checks in this reality. So we're to believe that we're all just misremembering, when in reality, it's like almost anybody you would ever ask, and we have tons of corroborating evidence. I mean, the amount of news, like you showed newspaper articles a minute ago, the amount of articles and published media and things written in books about Ed McMahon and all this stuff I could show you of him being for Publishers Clearinghouse. But the official record, he never had any affiliation with them. And any commercials that you might have recorded from the PCH days or the official envelopes from the company, they're completely gone from existence. And I know that sounds ridiculous. Go ahead and look. I challenge you.
Actually, a beautiful woman named Charlotte said Ed McMahon rang your doorbell. That's my wife, by the way, Brian. So when I said beautiful woman, I'm not hitting on some chick on a random.
Yeah.
But she did. He used to ring your doorbell with a big check. We all remember this, and yet you can't find any evidence of it anymore. Crazy.
It's all gone. And somebody said, does Ed McMahon know this? Ed McMahon's been dead for about a decade. But what's interesting is, so we talk about this evidence that you were showing earlier. We call that residual evidence. Residue is what most of us call it. And it's everywhere. So when there's a change, when there's a Mandela effect change to this reality, the one thing changes officially all the way back. Like, we're going to talk some movies and some lighter things in a minute. But like when a movie changes, every copy of it changes retroactively all the way back to its origin point. But all these things off to the side, write-ups about it, people doing songs, parodies, cover songs, people doing things in play, human artwork, all this stuff with human emotion put into it on the side, mostly that all remains. And there's a clip of Ed McMahon himself. He did a rap video in 2009 for freecreditreport.com. I know it sounds ridiculous, but he did a rap video. In the rap video, he's driving around in a white van, which is just like the Prize Patrol van for PCH, not AFP, right? And he's rapping about how he needs to go back to people's doors and collect the giant check he gave them. And he goes to their door and rings the bell and asks them back for the big check. Coming out of his own mouth. But he's never done that.
It's crazy.
We're not crazy.
How about Johnny Carson, David Letterman? Talk about that, Brian.
Yeah, so there's a clip. You guys know Johnny Carson. Ed McMahon was his sidekick. 30 years. That's a long time. So whether people are best friends offset or not, that's always another issue. But clearly they know each other quite well. And there's a skit where Johnny Carson actually goes on the David Letterman show. And as a little joke or whatever, he comes out with this giant check and he's like, "We're sorry, Dave. Dave, you're the lucky $1 million winner. But we're sorry. Our friend Ed McMahon couldn't be here tonight to, present this to you. And the check that Johnny's holding says Publishers Clearinghouse on it. Doesn't say American Family Publishing."
Yet people are going to say, "Oh, that's crazy. You're crazy. He never worked there," as we just witnessed when I was talking about stovetop stuffing instead of potatoes. They said, no, you're crazy for a match. You're misremembering it. That's what they say. Like, it's weird, man. It's weird. Now, This one's fun and games. It's kind of fun to talk about this. So let's go to one more. Then I want to hit some deep reality stuff. The Monopoly Man. Talk about that.
Sure. Well, if I were to ask you guys to describe what the Monopoly Man looks like, his most identifying features, what would you say? Type it in the chat. The character.
The chat. The Monopoly Man. What's his most identifying features? We'll give it a couple seconds to go because it's.
Yeah, but so if you were gonna quickly draw the Monopoly Man, what would you draw? What type of features would you put on?
Brian, how old are you, by the way? You were raised in the 70s. You're an 80s guy. You're about 42 or something like that.
45.
45.
So I was born in 77.
Okay, yeah. So most of your growing up years are the 80s. Okay, gotcha. Right on.
Yeah, definitely. And these are great examples too because some of these go way, way, way back. Yeah, I'm watching the chat.
So
we'll give it a minute.
Yeah, that right on. That's good. So Vincenzo was born in 77. He's 46. All right, or she, I'm not sure. Right on. Let's see if we got anything on Rumble here. Yeah, we got about 20 people on Rumble watching.
Oh, cool.
No, Rumble's actually weird, Brian. Well, the things coming in is like it gets better live streamed than videos. I've noticed that. On Rumble, so you get more views on when you're live on Rumble than just regular videos. It's strange. I'm not sure what that's about. All right, so we got a couple comments here about the.
Yeah. All right, so we'll roll with it. So for those of you that said anything about a monocle, you would be wrong. He's never had a monocle in this reality now, and I certainly remember the monocle. As do many, many, many people. And what's funny is they'll tell you that you're just mixing them up with the Planters Peanut guy, which is absurd, dude. Like, I'm not mixing the Monopoly Man up with the Planters Peanut guy. And Monopoly's a worldwide thing. Planters Peanuts aren't. And many other countries, I talk to people who remember the Monopoly Man with a monocle, and I have no idea who the Planters Peanut guy is.
And not that, but the evidence of the Monopoly Man with a monocle, what other people remember as well. We all know the Monopoly Man had a monocle. I mean, it's just nuts to think he did not. There's so much.
He looks weird without it. He looks so weird without anything over his eye to me. I don't know. It's crazy.
Jill says must be Clue. Is there they got a guy in Clue with a monocle, Jill? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. That's interesting. I didn't think.
Yeah, I don't know.
But how about the Jim Carrey sketch?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. So there's a skit in the movie with Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura 2 sees this guy walking towards him, and he says, "Oh, you must be the Monopoly Man," and he starts beating him up. But the thing is, the guy, he has a monocle, but he doesn't have a top hat or a cane. The only identifying feature this guy has is a bald guy with a monocle, and Jim Carrey's calling him the Monopoly Man. Telling him don't pass go and all this stuff.
And there's tons of stuff like that with all this, there's like residue. All right, so here we go. This guy says, if you're favoring the Mandela effect as a psyop, okay, well, we'll see. I disagree immensely. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll talk about that. All right, so what's another? I kind of want to go to Black Tom. If you want to go there, that's a big one for me right there. That actually makes me.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. So, what do you guys think about Black Tom? You guys know about Black Tom? People in the chat.
Say one, but one if you know about Black Tom, or 2 if you do not. So I would put a 2 before I came across Brian's channel. I had never heard of Black Tom, no clue what it was, and that when I found out what it was, like, that's weird. So a 2 if you never heard of Black Tom, a 1 if you had, and we're not getting any. It's weird.
They're coming in now. The answers are coming in now.
On the Rumble, it's not.
Oh, I see all 2s on YouTube.
I've never heard of Black Tom. Okay, so no one's ever. So basically, no one's ever heard of Black Tom. This right here, my friends, is worth the price of admission. So take it away, Brian.
So for me, you know, growing up in school, and you know all those things we get taught in history, and then also when you know 9/11 happens, whether you know all the information you take in from the media, and then if you do your own research after, whatever, you know, documentaries and things like that, all this information you take in, you always hear about the first major foreign attack on U.S. soil. At least when I say this too, I'm not talking about like in the 1800s. I'm talking about 20th century and beyond. You know,
modern era. Yeah.
Modern era. Yeah. You always hear about Pearl Harbor being the first major foreign attack on U.S. soil, and then you hear about 9/11. And this is said over and over and over and over again, especially when September 11th went down. And that's another topic I spent a lot of time on. So especially looking through all that material, it was always said, it's in all the documentary. And this doesn't matter what you believe on these events or anything. It was said in all corners of life. One thing that was never said was this Black Tom thing that every single one of you has not heard of. And you're not alone. This is my biggest Mandela effect, and it's a historical one. So this gets deeper than Ed McMahon and Stovetop. And I mean, this changes in scripture and everything, and we'll get there. And I'm going to blow your minds with a few of them later. Yep. But these historical inserts, gigantic to me. And now in this reality, there's an event called Black Tom. It's not a person. There's an event called Black Tom, where in 1916, 2 German spies snuck in through New Jersey into the New York harbor and blew up a munitions depot with 1 million pounds of TNT, with what they're calling the largest non-nuclear man-made explosion in the history of the world. And in this largest explosion in the history of the world that nobody's ever heard of, this explosion rocked New York so bad it injured 120, it killed 5, it blew out all the windows in Lower Manhattan, it was felt in Philadelphia, and it damaged the torch of the Statue of Liberty so bad that nobody's ever been to the torch. Now, let's go back to the historical aspect of this, just the outright absurdity that none of us have ever heard about the time that New York was bombed with 1 million pounds of TNT, and the Statue of Liberty, the supposed symbol of freedom, was damaged in this attack, and this was never mentioned to you in school. Crazy. At 9/11, which was up the street. They didn't want to mention that the Statue of Liberty was bombed before. Now, here's where it gets even trickier, because people are so set on thinking something like this can't happen, thinks our reality can't be fluid in these ways. They'll say things like, well, they just brushed it under the rug. My friends, you cannot brush 1 million pounds of TNT going off in New York City under the rug so that nobody has any recollection of such an event. But on top of that, I've spoken to people that have been in the torch, and I reckon maybe some of you people in chat have as well, or maybe you've even been in the torch yourself. But now in this reality, that is an impossibility because the torch has been closed to the public since 1916. The idea that this could just go under everybody's nose, allegedly, is preposterous. But then on top of it, like, I know people personally that have been in the torch, and now that's impossible. And if they have any photographs, if you're wondering, they have any photographs of videos of themselves in the torch, those will cease to exist. Just like we talked about Stouffer stovetop stuffing. If you remember Stouffer stovetop stuffing, and you took a photograph of it 10 years ago when it said Stouffer stovetop stuffing, but now it doesn't say that on the box because it's still that the product still exists, but with a different company now, with Kraft, okay? And the box looks similar. But if you took a picture of it when it said Stouffer's, that picture now
it just says stovetop.
It would just say stovetop stuffing. It wouldn't say Stouffer's on it anymore. So if you had, even if you say, well, I've been in the torch and I have pictures of it, I'll go dig them up. Good luck. You won't find them.
So the Black Tom, I just, after September 11th, you would think that the Black Tom would be very well known. and yet no one knows a freaking damn thing about it, even though it's the biggest explosion. That is just nuts, man. And not that wasn't what led us into World War I to begin with. It's insane. I'm like, A, where did that come from? And B, how did that not get known before? You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. No one remembers that. No one would.
Nobody, dude. And I've been approached by people who brought to people, hey, this guy really knows his history. He's an expert. This guy's a professor. Let's get him on the line. I've had these calls with people, not so many of them, but a few, and none of them knew a damn about Black Tom. None of them. And then, of course, this, we'll get into some more history in a little bit. I think we should maybe bounce over to the Thinker in a minute to really hammer home this photography point that I'm talking about. But there's so many of these changes in historical inserts that have to do with Germans. It's really, really strange.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, actually, I didn't think about that. It is strange.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to talk? Yeah, let's talk about the Thinker statue, okay? Because I want to show you an example of what I just said about photographic and video.
All right, share your screen. If I need to do something, just let me know. Yeah, this is pretty cool right here.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I thought January 6th was the worst thing that ever happened to our country. Oh, that's a good one, Rick. January 6th. All right. So,
all right. So before I open up the folder, I just want to show people something. The Thinker statue by Rodin, and there's different ones of it all over the world. What many. So if you guys can think of the Thinker statue, if you are familiar with it, I want you to in the chat type where you remember his fist being in the Thinker pose. Okay. So this statue is that. Yeah, there's many of them all over the world. As of right now, before I get into this, they are all in the same orientation, just to be clear. Okay, so I'll show you what I remember for the Thinker pose, as do many other people. And then I'm going to get into something really interesting. So here's the Thinker. So the first picture I'm going to show you is Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. I know you guys are all familiar with Arnold. Okay, so here's Arnold doing what I remember the Thinker pose to be. And in fact, this pose became so iconic that they took it into bodybuilding after and made it, and they have a pose called the Thinker pose, based off the Thinker statue, with the right fist to the forehead and the right elbow to the knee. Okay. So now I could show you a lot of different examples of people doing this Thinker pose. Okay. But now the Thinker, in reality, has his fist to his chin. And I want to show you something interesting. So check this out. Okay, so I know this is kind of not the best high resolution, but you can see right here, fist is under the chin. Yeah. Okay. But look at the person posing in front of it. So why would they travel to the statue and pose the wrong way in front of it for the photograph? Now, I'm going to show you a couple more examples and then tell you what I think is happening. He's not the only one. This girl goes to this museum or whatever, where they have this Thinker. I know it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like Legos or something, but fist under the chin, not to the forehead. Fist under the chin, but she has it to the forehead, just as I remember. Again.
And yet the image right there that she's
standing right next to it. Now this is the one that it's really. Oh no, two more. Same example here. Right, this one travels to a Thinker statue, does the pose the wrong way, fist to the forehead. And then you have this entire school field trip or whatever it is.
They got it right.
They're all lined up with the fist to the forehead. They're all posing what's now the wrong way in this reality. So what I'm saying has happened is, when these changes happen, they change in the photograph as well. That's what happened. So the Thinker was photographed. Any video or photo of the Thinker will change to match new reality, but it doesn't change the other things in the photo. All the people are still posing the way that they were when they took this photo.
Why would they be posing like that? It makes no sense. There's no sense that they're posing like with their hand to the freaking forehead when the statue's their hand to the chin. Doesn't make sense. Crazy.
So that's what I'm talking about with the photos. If something changes and you have photographs of it, it will change to match.
Let me interject there. Are you ready to talk about the Bible stuff? Because that's another thing that got me. Or you gotta want to hit something else first. Whatever you want to do, Brian. You roll with it. But
yeah, let's just spit out a couple of common pop culture ones real quick. I'll just fly through them.
No, fine. Absolutely. 100%.
Give people something to think about, and then we'll get right into the Bible, okay? Yeah. Where there's a couple of really big things that should blow your mind. So, and make sure we touch on geography later too.
Yeah.
So, when I grew up, Mr. Rogers was a show that I watched every day. Okay, every day for however many years, could be a decade, maybe not. So 5 days a week for a decade, watching Mr. Rogers every day, and not only watching it. Okay, because when we talk about movies and things like this changing, people say, well, maybe you just didn't see it that many times. You weren't really sure. Watch Mr. Rogers every day and sang along with the intro when he came through the door. And every day, if you guys remember, let's get the chat to answer. How does Mr. Rogers' theme song start? I'll even start it for you. You only need to fill in a few words. Just finish this sentence. It's a beautiful day in. So he would come through the door. It's a beautiful day. Finish the line, people in the chat.
It's a beautiful day. Let's see what you guys say. It's
Mr.
Rogers. Y'all know Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day.
Okay.
Got a couple people so far.
So Lewis. Yep, I see. Lewis wrote The Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers from Pittsburgh. Are you from Pittsburgh, Louis? Or Lewis, I'm sorry. J.D. Thompson, The Neighborhood. Monica, In the Hood. Charlotte, In the Neighborhood.
Yep, there's another In the Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Lewis says he is from Pittsburgh. All right. Well,
awesome. So you're from Pittsburgh. Well, just so you know, being from Pittsburgh, you should know Mr. Rogers' theme song, and you're wrong, as is everybody else in the chat. And I'm not making fun of anybody because I know it was In the Neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be? Sang it all the time. Right. Okay. This is something that I repeated once or twice. I repeated this all the time, even growing up. If you're in a good mood, you might be at work. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Take any copy of Mr. Rogers. And again, I'm not asking for obscure things that we can't prove. I'm not saying, hey, there's a Mandela effect in my uncle's graduation video where, no, we're talking about Mr. Rogers. We're talking about Ed McMahon and all these envelopes that should be out there, right? All the boxes of stovetop stuffing. And we're going to get to things that are even more in everybody's homes, like Bibles and stuff in a minute. Now, if you watch any episode of Mr. Rogers, he comes through the door and says, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, as in like not in everybody's neighborhood, just his. I'm sorry, that's not what he said. And if you go and look at all the what we call residue of it, so different skits have been done. I'm sure you guys are familiar maybe with Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood by Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live. He used to do a skit of Mr. Rogers. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. Johnny Carson's done it. I mean, everybody's done it. I point out different channels all the time that quote it. They sing the song, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Now it's always been this in this reality. Now, it's funny, too, for even some real significant residue, because people say, well, they just change things. People sing things the wrong way because they're worried about copyright, which is absurd. That's absurd. But Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood is a show that's owned by PBS, same as Mr. Rogers. They use that theme song. It's just like a remix of it with the same words, and it still says it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I mean, it comes right from the company that owns it. And then on top of it, the Mandela effect community was talking about this change a lot in like 2016, 2017, 2018. Then they announced Tom Hanks is going to be in this movie about Mr. Rogers. At first, they gave it a tentative title, and then we're waiting for it. And after a while, CNN News, it comes up. The Mr. Rogers movie by Sony Pictures has a title, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, named after the original theme song, it says. And they clip it at the bottom. He comes through the door and he says, this neighborhood.
You can look on YouTube. It's all this neighborhood. It's this. It's not the neighborhood. It's crazy.
Kaparan has a good question. How is it that photos of people don't change, but films of people do? No, film and photo Same thing. So what I'm saying is, if there's a Mandela effect that you photographed or video recorded, a statue, a monument, a piece of artwork, we'll talk about some of those. Definitely should get to creation of Adam too as we get into the Bible. If you film it and the object that is the Mandela effect in your video evidence or photo evidence, it will change to correlate to reality. But the people around it, the background scenery, all of that stuff will remain. And there's many examples of this. It's not just like what I showed you with the thinker. I mean, it's been some wild things.
That's crazy.
Absolutely crazy. So let's
yeah, keep going, man. It's
I'm going to take a screen share. I want you guys to think of a famous piece of artwork by Michelangelo called "The Creation of Adam" on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. What I'm going to give you a light description. I want you to fill in the blanks in your mind. So there's an image on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel where God is reaching to Adam to provide the divine spark. I want you to think about that image in your head, what it looks like and what it represents to you. Okay. So first I'm going to show you what I remember, and then I'm going to show you what it is. And I'm going to say that this probably has a pretty strong message. So what I remember, and forgive me that this first one shows Adam sticking his middle finger up, but it's a good piece of evidence. So I'm not trying to be blasphemous or anything. This is just an image. Go ahead, throw that up there.
You got it. There you go.
So this is where I remember is God being high, and this obviously is not the real image. This is God being higher than Adam and coming down at like a 45-degree angle. This is what I remember. Yeah. This is like what I remember. All these depictions are done because this was the orientation of the creation of Adam, okay? Coming down at an angle. Coming down at an angle, providing the divine spark to man. Now, before I go through a whole bunch of these, I'll just show you what it is now and why I think this is a big change. Now, in this reality, God is not pointing down to Adam. He's actually lower in some ways. Adam's wrist, which was not down like this, he had his finger pointed up. God was way up here for me with his fingertip pointing down to Adam. That's why you have all those images like that. Now, look at this. Man is higher than God. And this is nothing to do with American media or anything. This is Michelangelo's painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. You can go there.
It's right now in the Sistine Chapel, like that?
It's exactly like this right now in the Sistine Chapel.
That's bad, man. That's nuts. That's bad.
Isn't that wild?
I don't like that.
And we have, there's you could go forever with the residue of that. It's mimicking copy time. So now, with some of the agendas in the world, maybe this is a warning that, hey, people are trying to put man higher than God. And, we've seen some of the attacks on the Bible and whatnot. So
we got something in here, Brian. Yes, we do. Check this out. This is right there. And look, see that?
Yeah. That's crazy looking to me.
And you got Adam's hand all, FM, whatever that word is, FM, whatever that's called. And God's is like, that's.
Yeah, and hey, I don't care how anybody lives their life, but we know about some of the agendas that they tie into some of these things. And now that man higher than God, flamboyant man with his wrists like that. These are all things we all pick up on. We see a lot of this, but maybe we should go right to this into the Bible, because I know there's some people probably in here that are near and dear to the Bible. And this is your first time ever bringing up any of this to your audience, right? As far as
I posted on Mr. Rogers once, and I did on Looney Tunes the other day. That thing I sent you, but that's pretty much it. I remember.
Excellent. Okay, so here we go. Let me talk about Bible changes for a minute and give you a little history, if you will, on what I mean when I say the Bible's changed. I completely understand that things have been omitted from the Bible. The Bible's been rewritten many times. There are all these different translations of the Bible. I understand that there's a huge difference between looking something up online, checking the Bible in your house. I'm going to present things to you today that if you remember the way in which I do, which I think you will, not, maybe you won't, but I think you will. And the way Josh does, I'm going to present some things to you that when you go and open the own Bible that's in your house, no matter the year, no matter the version, you're going to notice that it doesn't correlate with what you've always known it to be in a few examples here. And there are some that are version specific, which I'll address, but let's just get right into the big two right off the bat. If I was to ask everybody in the chat, in the book of Isaiah, what animal lies with the lamb? What would you say?
Actually, I think we might have done this one on my channel. I can't remember. But yeah,
Okay.
So what animal lies with the lamb? Yeah, that's
and if you've already heard this from Josh, put what you originally always remembered before he filled you in.
Exactly. We got 41 on Rumble now. Sweet. Hey, all right, cool. We got 150 people. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
We'll take
awesome.
It. Yeah, right on. Saturday Night Live's a good night, good for fighting, that's for sure. So that's good.
Yeah, cool. Right. Looks like answers are starting to come in. And before I give you guys the answer, let me just tell you that not only do I do this type of thing all the time on interviews, not only do I ask my audience, I ask people on the street. I actually go to what would be subject matter experts, and I actually approach pastors on the street, preachers on the street. This is all on video, almost all of it. People in Ubers, pastors, preachers. I went up to some Jehovah Witnesses the other day that were teaching Bible courses. They were in the center of town here, and I talked to them. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat right now, and I see. But besides whatever that is, I see lion, the Lion of Judah with an exclamation point, lion, exactly, signifying what, Louis? Signifying the millennial reign of Christ, right? Shamel Hemlick, lion. I'm going to give you guys some time right now because you're not going to believe me if I just tell you.
Right.
No matter what version you have, could be a 1611 KJV, could be an NIV, could be the New World Translation that the Jehovah Witnesses have, could be an NKJV. Doesn't matter what version. You pull out your Bible right now to Isaiah 11:6. Please do it while we're waiting. If you have it,
Isaiah 11:6. We're gonna bring it up.
You guys pull it out right now. What version do you have there?
That's NIV from 1984.
And read people what's in the NIV. And I know you already know what the deal is, but
Isaiah 11:6. And I remember that's the chapter right before Jeremiah, as we're talking about here lately. 11:6. All right, there we go, Brian. You want me to read it, you said? Or
yeah, read it. Go ahead.
The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion, and the yearling together.
The wolf.
Yeah, the wolf.
The wolf will live with the lamb. The loaf will lie with the lamb. The wolf will dwell with the lamb. This is the only variation depending on which version of the Bible you have. I know the KJV says the wolf will dwell with the lamb. It's never been the lion now in this reality. Lewis, you wrote the Lion of Judah. I mean, it signifies the millennial reign, right? Now it's always been the wolf. And you can watch me approach people that bragged. One of the Jehovah Witnesses I approached before, I make sure I get all the background information first. I say, I have some questions about the Bible. And a friend of mine told me about a passage that's really profound. And again, I didn't give you guys a multiple choice. I didn't lead you with the answer. You just filled in the blank. There's many other animals in the Bible you could have put in there. You all put lion. Nobody put wolf. Nobody put anything different. The lion will lie with the lamb is now the wolf in every Bible around the world.
Every single one. It doesn't matter when it was. It doesn't matter. It's nuts, man.
And we've shown pastors, preachers, rabbis, and also people say, well, you just got it from pop culture. They'll try and use the evidence against you, right? So there's songs like by Elvis that talks about the lion laying in the lamb. Oh, you got it from the Elvis song. No, we have evidence going back like 800 years that I've shown of residue, specifically quoting Isaiah as the lion will lay with the lamb. And I got residue going before any pop culture even existed. Yeah. And you guys know, you all said lion. Don't just throw away your memory. So now you're supposed to think that this Mandela effect can't be real. Yeah. But to think that, you would have to think your senses are failing you, your memory's failing you, and I must have just mixed up the lion and the wolf, Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse, Stouffer Stovetop Stuffing, Mr. Rogers. This event happened black, all these things. It's got to start to add up at some point and be like, whoa, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
There's a problem with this reality. And for those of you that this might be shocking, It doesn't have to be scary. Don't worry.
No,
I'm not a
not at
fear
all.
Josh, you can tell people I'm the opposite of a fear-mongering channel.
Absolutely.
Like, absolute opposite. There's astounding. There's more changes in the Bible that we're going to get to. Yep, Algo says the wolf will live with the lamb. Yep, they all say the wolf, and they have different variations on the word. Lie with, live with, dwell with. Those change through the different translations, but every translation you have, and again, you can check Bible Hub, the Bible app, but you can open your Bible like Josh just did. So if this is a psyop and people are just changing the Bible and changing movies after the fact, well, what happened? Did the Mandela burglar come by, sneak in your house, and swap out your Bibles? Because your own Bible that you've had in your house is different now.
Yeah. Nuts, man.
Yeah, totally nuts. Okay, let's and that's a significant thing, don't you think? The wolf now. I mean, that's like, wolf in sheep's clothing in place of the Lion of Judah. Like, you would think that's a strong warning. And right after, also the creation of Adam is now showing you man higher than God. Like all this stuff.
And the Mr. Rogers thing, though. I mean, I know that's simple though. Like, versus this. You see what I'm saying? That's it. All kind of, you're like, oh, that's just dumb Stouffer's. Okay, maybe that is, but this right here with Adam and God. This neighborhood versus the neighborhood, and I think we're going to go to another one of the Bible, you know what I'm saying, which bothers me even more than the wolf and the lion. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, we're going there right now, and this is my favorite one, and I've covered this one probably more than anybody, and it's a famous quote, and the reason is because, like I said, these Mandela effects, they seem to tie in with agendas in the world. Okay, let's just stop by saying that. We're not going to try and go too far off topic, but you guys all know what's been going on in the last 3 years, right? Yeah. So before this thing kicked off 3 years ago, there were a few Mandela effects that happened that correlate directly to it. So I'm going to get to one right now that's Bible related, and then we'll get to a couple that are not Bible related, and maybe we'll circle back. So there's a famous quote in the book of Matthew. Yep. It's Matthew 18:20. And once again, this is a universal change. So just think about what I'm saying. I'm challenging you. I don't care what version of the Bible's in your house. You pull it up, and it's going to be what I'm telling you, about to tell you, okay? Yep. Even if you totally disagree and think that that's impossible.
Matthew 18:20. So if hopefully you
in Matthew 18:20, there's a famous expression. I want you to finish it. It starts out like this: where two or, and everybody in the chat finish it. Where two or blank. I can even give you another word. Where two or blank gather.
Yeah. Where two or blank gather. Matthew 18:20. This is this one actually probably pissed me off more than anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah, man. I've got a few videos on this. And by the way, these Bible changes that I speak of, I have a single short video on each one. Plus, we talk about this all the time on my live stream. Okay. Lewis wrote more. Basscat wrote more. We'll wait for a few more answers.
Looks like the chat and Rumble is a little bit behind, but we got 3. DB Douglas says 3. We got more. We got Laura said more. And 3. And Carl said pangolin.
So I like so many others. Remember, where two or more gather in my name, there I will be in the midst, signifying the presence of God will be there if you have gathering of people, right? But now every single version of the Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered, as in what? Limited gathering, and then the presence of God won't be there. And then what? A few months later, what happened? Well, they started limiting gatherings, particularly in churches first. And the amount of people that remember 2 or more, I have a video that's a short video on it, but I also have one that's 3 hours long, just showing all the passages and preachers on YouTube and everywhere else quoting it, all the passages I approach on the street and all of that. So I think that definitely ties into what's been going on over the last few years.
So the 3 is what your Bible say now, but I'm not trying to challenge anybody because I don't know, but man, I don't remember ever being 2 or 3. And people might. That's fine. That's the whole point. I can't. But I just remember 2 or more because that said wherever anyone, more than one person is gathered, the Lord will be there. You know what I'm saying? And 2 or 3 in the ESV. It's 2 or 3 in the NIV. It doesn't matter though. It's always going to be 2 or 3 now. It won't be 2 or more. None of them will. It's crazy. It literally doesn't matter what your Bible is. It could be Catholic Bible. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it was written. It's all going to be 2 or 3. And that's why would. But the thing is, Brian, why would all these pastors who preach it on a weekly basis say 2 or more? You see what I'm saying? And then but it's not in the Bible. It says 2 or 3. So why would all these people just create out of nowhere or more when it's easy to look? It says 2 or 3. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and more. It's like, again, why would they all get the same mistake? Why, if it's never been more, why is everybody saying more? Why isn't it a different variation of words or numbers or any of it? It's just 2 or more, 2 or more, 2 or more. Or the people that remember it now in the way in which it is 2 or 3.
Or just say, or my question, if it's always been 2 or 3, why would anyone say 2 or more? Like literally, if a pastor is supposed to say the Bible is infallible God's word, they're not going to just add or 3 or more. I'm saying they're going to say the Bible says 2 or 3. They're not going to just say, no, we don't believe in that. We're going to say 2 or more. It doesn't make any sense, man. It's crazy.
Yep. Another one that's really big. I'll just throw a couple out there. A lot of people remember Matthew 7:1 as "Judge not, lest ye be judged."
Yeah, this one's huge too. Yeah.
Okay, if you open it up now, at least in the KJV, I know all the with this one. There's a lot of different wording on a lot of them, but it says, "Judge not, lest ye be not judged." Right now, the only place that says "Judge not, lest ye be judged" is a 1500 William Tyndale Bible that I know nobody here. That's where they learned it from. But all the KJVs and all the other ones, none of them say "Judge not, lest ye be judged." The Golden Rule is another one. And some people say, well, that's not a Bible. No, it was in the Bible. And the verse is still there. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do unto others is no longer there. It now just says do to others as you would have them do to you. Well, why would we remember the word unto in there? Like, that's just a ridiculous word. Another one that's not Bible related, speaking of ridiculous words, I want you guys to finish this. You guys will know that it's a famous speech. It's the Gettysburg Address. Ready? 77 years ago, just say the next few words. So the next word. 77 years ago, our okay, I'm gonna go because they're on a delay. It'll be fine. Did you say our forefathers? Because I remember forefathers.
Yeah, me too. Lewis says fathers. Then got more. Yeah, look, all these people are saying fathers. That's interesting.
Oh wow. Yeah, for sure. Because I certainly remember forefathers.
Me too, man. I don't remember fathers. Yeah. I remember forefathers exactly.
Yeah, and now forefathers is nowhere in there. So I also seen people asking about theories, and we'll get there. Like, is this a simulation? This and that. I just want to say, don't shut the whole thing down if you disagree with 1 or 2 of them. Always reflect back and say, okay, well, that one's not a change for me, but what these other ones are unexplainable, because it's not a one or all. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's the way in which we're interpreting this reality in many ways. And even myself, who is clearly recognized probably 1,000 changes I'm affected by, and say somebody I do shows with a lot would be affected by so many, there are ones that we definitely differ on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Lewis says, I'm old too. How did I miss that one? I don't know. It's weird, man. That's what makes it interesting and fun and liberating. And that's a lot of people get really upset because like, oh my goodness. And I said, no, you're missing it. But we'll talk about that.
All right. If anybody here has a KJV as their favorite Bible, press 1 in the chat, or even if you have one in the house, because I am going to talk about a KJV exclusive change. Okay. So this one is not universal. It's KJV, but it's from a very huge verse in the KJV. And that would be the Lord's Prayer. Okay. And I'd like to speak on this from the KJV perspective and then more from a universal perspective after. Surely you guys are familiar with the Lord's Prayer. And I am going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead because I can't have you guys recite it from, it'd be too much to type in the chat. But what many people remember in the Lord's Prayer in the KJV is, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Kingdom come, it will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? Now, that in the KJV no longer says, Our Father who art in heaven. It says, Our Father which art in heaven. And it no longer says on earth. It says in earth.
Oh, that's nuts, man.
Yep. And then I also guarantee you that if you remember the word, forgive those that trespass against, forgive us our trespasses, and those that trespass against us, you won't find it in the Bible at your house. There's one obscure version that was brought up to me online called a New Matthew Bible, which I've never heard anybody ever reference, where you will find it in it online. But I guarantee, do not have a Bible in your house that in the Lord's Prayer has the word trespass and trespasses. Forgive, it'll say debts and debts, sin and sinners. There's a couple other variations. I think some might even say transgressions. None say trespasses. And you'll just be told, well, because you'll find it in old prayer books and things, and you'll just be told, well, you got it from an old Catholic prayer book. But many people remember read. There's a woman that was doing live streams about the last couple of years. She was a nurse or whatever, and she was doing live streams. At the end of every live stream, she would say the Lord's Prayer, right? So she's quoting the Bible in her live stream, and I'm in the chat, and I see that she's got her Bible there. And I said to her, I said, hey, Kate, I said, what version of the Bible do you have right there? Yeah. And she held it up and she said, this is my King James version of the Bible. And then, so she's reading different quotes. But when it comes time to do the Lord's Prayer, right, you can tell she knew it by heart already. So she didn't stare at her book. And she said it the way in which I did, which isn't in the book that's right in front of her.
Did she actually look it up?
Did she look it up? I left her a long, detailed comment, but I don't know if she ever looked it up. I've tried to wake so many of these people up to the Mandela effect, and you know how it is, man. With most of these so-called, truth seekers and whatnot, it just goes completely on deaf ears with them. It's like,
it's weird, man. It's weird.
It's totally weird. You mentioned earlier about some of the connotation of some of these messages. We see that in the songs too. Like with Jewel, there's a famous song by Jewel, "Who Will Save Your Soul." And, it was very popular when I was growing up, early teens or whatever. Who will save your soul? But now in the song, it's still titled the same, with the exception of at the very end, she says, who will save your souls, all throughout the song. Another one is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge. Yeah. So if you guys know the song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge, sing the next line. It's the city I live in, the city. And again, this is that same type of message that we see with, the creation of Adam, the wolf dwelling with the lamb. So that Red Hot Chili Peppers video is literally shot in the streets of Los Angeles. And what's the nickname of Los Angeles? Well, the nickname of Los Angeles is City of Angels. And I'm sure it's on a delay, but I'm sure I'm going to see people type in the chat. Here we go. Of angels. It's the city I live in, the city of angels. You're all wrong. If you put it in now, and again, when I say if you put it in now, I'm not saying go to Spotify or Amazon Music or whatever it is where they could have updated the streaming whatever. Like, you can check those as well, but I'm telling you to check your Red Hot Chili Peppers album from the 90s, your CD, right, hard copy you have, if it's on your hard drive, whatever you got, and it's going to say City of Angel, as in single, like the City of Angel, which makes no sense. He's literally talking about Los Angeles. The City of Angel? What angel?
I have a bad idea. Is that even like on the lyric sheet and all that too? Is that instead of angel instead of angels?
Yeah. But some lyrics, a lot of lyrics I have it the old way. Now, talk about residue. So I could easily show you endless cover bands and people doing the song and parody, City of Angels, City of Angels, City of Angels. On all their official albums, it's changed. Now, what's interesting is with a lot of these bands, sometimes so people will say, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? I can show you two examples of at a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, they themselves are on stage singing City of Angels with the S, and the entire crowd with tens of thousands of people are all singing along with them, Angels with an S. It's never been that anymore.
How about the freaking Queen one, man? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's the same thing. We all know it's the same thing. We all know what it is, and yet it's not what it is anymore.
Crazy. Yeah, totally insane.
We are the champions of the world at the very end of the world. We all know that.
Yeah.
Now it's like
it's never been there. No, it's on a different version, but it's not on the original album at all anymore. And of course, when they perform it live or anybody sings it after a sports parade, I mean, you know the deal, man. You know the deal. Okay, let's get back to some. I'd like to address a couple big product ones, that movies that people can check and that have some significant residue. We could go there real quick, and then we'll come around and we'll talk about some geography. I know you guys want to know about theories and stuff, but we're definitely going to lay this out a little more before we get into that. What's the time constraints today? What do we got?
Whatever, man. I keep rolling. My wife's out of town, so when the cat's away, the mice will play, Brian.
All right, so we can do at least like another hour or so.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. All right, so another huge one for me is I want you to think about Disney. I want you to, and I know we're going from something as huge as the Bible back to movies. But again, if a movie or a product changes or the Bible changes, we're talking about physical matter changing in this reality, and it doesn't correlate memories and all this corroborating evidence. This one has some significance to it. And this is a slam dunk. So again, if I was in a grocery store and I could ask 100 random adults, what is the phrase that the evil queen says in the mirror of the movie Snow White? I want you guys to type it in the chat, okay? And please, nobody cheat on any of these. Go completely off memory. Type it right in the chat.
All right, so ask the question again.
What is the phrase, the iconic phrase that the evil queen says in the mirror in the movie Snow White? And I'm talking about the animated Disney classic that came out in like the 50s and 60s, the 50s, I think, that we all grew up with, you know, VHS and you know, they had Snow White and Bambi and 101 Dalmatians and all these movies that came out when we were younger. Okay. I want you guys to type the famous iconic quote when the evil queen looks in the mirror. Okay.
A couple in here.
Okay. We'll give it another few seconds. Let some more fill up. Okay, so I see what everybody's typing in the chat. And every one of you that said mirror, mirror on the wall, you're all wrong.
Yep.
She's never said mirror, mirror on the wall. Now, in this reality, and again, this isn't something obscure, right? I just brought up the Bible, any version you want to check, right? Mirror, mirror on the wall. I mean, Snow White. You know, many people might still own this movie. You might have it in the house for your grandkids or your kids or whatever, right? If you pop it in right now, she's going to say magic mirror on the wall. So again, I know that doesn't seem that significant, but again, here's another one of these messages, right? The magic mirror, right? And then, and on top of this, we're talking about a movie that's been sitting in your house, has retroactively changed in reality all the way back to its origin point. Now, I could come here and show you, and I have videos on this, endless amounts of residue, people that remember Mirror, Mirror, people quoting it everywhere. It's in all the songs you could imagine. People are like Mirror, Mirror on the wall. By the way, Mirror, Mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The last part of it changed as well. So when these articles come out to try and debunk this, they forget about the last part. The last part doesn't say fairest one of all. It says mirror, magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest? No, magic mirror on the wall. I forget how the second part goes, but the second part changed too. I'll get to it in a minute. I'm having a brain lapse. But anyways, the mirror, mirror on the wall is now magic mirror. So I could show you endless merchandise, ad campaigns that aren't official. Like, so Burger King had some Snow White cups. Mirror, mirror on the wall was printed on the back. So the first thing they're going to do is tell you, well, you're mixing it up with a book that came out in the 1800s from the Grimm's brothers or something like that, or the Brothers Grimm, because that book says mirror, mirror. Yeah, that book says mirror, mirror, but that's not where we got it from. We got it from the Disney movie. I've never seen that book from the 1800s. I've never read that book. But on top of that, you want to talk about significant evidence and residue, people closely connected. Walt Disney, Snow White was actually his first major color animated motion picture. So he was very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
After its release, Walt Disney on video is quoting it, mirror, mirror on the wall. On top of that, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall is what you already remembered and knew it to be. Magic Mirror was probably completely foreign to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we talk about foreign, that movie is translated in many other countries. It's dubbed over. So what's a Mandela effect? Well, a Mandela effect, like I said, it's when something physical changes, its official version, all the way back through time, right? But what's a dubbed over movie? Well, that's the original video, but it's not the original audio track, right? Because you got a guy in a different language dubbing it over. And in German, in Italian, in Dutch, I think in French and other languages, and I don't want to say more than I'm 100% sure on, those dubbed over movies, they say mirror, mirror in those other languages. Well, if it's always been magic mirror, why would that happen? You know, are you going to say that we're all misremembering, we're all stupid, none of this evidence matters, Walt Disney doesn't know what he's talking about, and also the people that dubbed over these movies, well, they didn't have a script, they did the movie off the top of their head, and somehow they got caught up in our mismemory. Like, that's how far you would have to go. No, we don't understand what this reality is, not even close to completely understanding what this reality is. This reality has changes in it. And Mirror, Mirror might not be the biggest thing for you, but you know, why these littler things? Well, I went to a family function and can we get to geography in a minute? Would that be cool?
Absolutely.
This would be a great segue to it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna bring up Google Earth. I'm not gonna grab the screen share quite yet, but I will be asking for it soon. So I went to a family. It was either Thanksgiving or Christmas in 2019, and I walk in the door, and I haven't. You know, this part of my family lives a few hours from where I was living at the time. So I hadn't seen, you know, my little cousins in like 5 years. Now he's like 11 or 12 years old. And rather than saying Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas or whatever when I come in the door, first thing he says to me is, I know about Pikachu's tail. And if you don't know, Pikachu is a Pokemon character who many people remember having a black tip on his tail. Now that black tip has never been there. But the fact that it's never been there now is making children aware of this. Okay. Isn't that wild?
So he told you that is funny. So he's already telling you, like, man, I know what's going on. Things are changing. Is that what you're saying?
When I walked in the door, he told me he was aware of this. And then so what my cousin did that I was with, I drove down with, he's my age. He says to the rest of the family, he brings up Ed McMahon. Yeah. And he explains it the way I did earlier. We don't need to go into the whole thing, but everybody, and these people, my whole family's from freaking Lowell. They're from the hometown that Ed's from. Everybody knows he worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. It's like, there's not even a question about it. So now everybody's blown away. Yeah. So then I started talking about geography changes, which is where we're going to go right now.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
When I first became aware of the Mandela effect, it was to a change with, if you give me a screen share, many people are familiar with or heard of, even if you've never looked into this topic, you probably heard of this one and just decided, well, there's not really anything here. This is just stupid. And that's the Berenstain Bears. And the Berenstain Bears is a children's book that I used to get in the book club in school. Many people did. That has been Mandela affected, and now it's always been the Berenstain Bears. And people used to not be sure of how to pronounce it, Steen or Stein. Well, if it was always spelled Stain, right, nobody would have even had those conversations. If it was Steen or Stein, it would have just been Berenstain. Okay. But that being the case, I was looking into a lot of other really big things at the time, kind of put it on the shelf for several months. Not really on the shelf, but we don't need to, I don't want to mix up topics here tonight. I want to stay focused on this, but I was looking into something really huge as well at the time. So I put this off for a few months. And then I was presented with two more things, and that was changes to history. And we'll get to that, what that historical event was in a minute, something you guys are all familiar with. And then geography changes. And there's going to be there's many, many geographical changes, but there's two in particular that I'm going to talk about right now. And there's also a personal geography change to do with me and Ed McMahon, kind of in a way, that I'll talk about. So if I were to ask the people in the chat, where in relation to North America is South America? How will you describe that? Where in relation to North America is South America?
Where in relation to North America, South America?
Yeah. So, yeah, don't pull any images out or anything yet. I want to.
Yeah, I got you. I'll just shut up for a
So what I remember is South America was underneath North
Yeah.
America. Now, before I go into that, we can get into something even more specific, okay, to give you an even more specific answer to what you remember here. What direction does the Panama Canal run? What direction does the Panama Canal run? So when I saw this, this is what really bothered me. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, and again, we're going to just try and stay on Mandela effect, but I don't trust any images given to us by, anybody. I don't trust this image. I don't trust maps. I know maps are reissued. I know maps are made for different projections, different political reasons, and all of that. Okay. So I see people type in for the canal, east-west, east-west. So I want to show you. Now, if you look at this world, okay, South America is way over to the east.
That's what I'm saying. Look at that, man. I was looking at my own globe. That's nuts. Where the hell?
It used to be over here. The East Coast almost lined up with the East Coast up here. Now it's the West Coast lined up with the East Coast of the United States. And on top of that, because it's moved so far over to the east, Central America, which used to be here, the Panama Canal was east and west because Central America connected over in this area, okay, near Venezuela, okay? The Panama Canal was east and west. Now the Panama Canal is no longer east and west because it goes in this direction because this is connected to the west side of South America.
Dude, this is nuts. Look at that. It's freaking.
It's so far over to where it was. And this will be reflected on any map. Okay. And again, if you say, well, they just changed the globe and they changed Google Earth. Well, that's a fair thought. And of course, I would think that as well. But you could, and this is what happened. This is why I brought this up right now. While I brought this change up to the people in my family's house, they were like, well, so you're telling me right now, if we looked at a globe that we had, that South America is going to be way over to the right? And I said, yeah. Why, do you have one? And my cousin Nicole said, yeah, we have the globe in the basement. It's like 30 years old. So they went out and got the globe, just like you guys can now, just like you could with your Bible, and check it out. And you'll see that it is laid out in this orientation. But it's not just that. I want to show one more because I kind of glanced over it. Some of you might have seen it. If I would also ask you what direction, if you were to describe Cuba and its in relation to Florida, where is Cuba in relation to Florida? And a little bit what Cuba looks like to you. What would you describe Cuba as? Okay, because this is right there as well. And some of you might have seen it while we had it up real quick, but this is the other part that really got me. And again, Rob Glow, no, man. I mean, no, absolutely not. I'm just staying on topic, dude. I go way back. Okay, so if you remember Cuba as a small island, I'll just get to what I remember. If you don't remember what I remember, it's cool. We'll just speed it up. I remember Cuba being a small island to the southeast of Florida. But now, Cuba is as big as Florida. Yes, and it's no longer, I remember it over here as a small island. Now it's grown so far westward and eastward that it's almost connected to Mexico over here, and it's also east of Florida. And look at the size of it.
It's like the size of Florida, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Brian, I'm freaking from Maine, dude. And I'm looking at Maine. It is the same, whatever, up and down longitude as like Peru, dude. That's no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Maine that's crazy. Yeah.
No, man, that's nuts. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
You can literally go south from freaking, basically Huntsville, Alabama. It would never hit South America. You'd go straight to wherever the hell you go. That's not the way it used to be.
Yeah. And another one for me is I remember Italy, and this one's hard to get you guys to explain it. So I'll just tell you what I remember. I remember Italy being a standing boot, and Italy still is shaped like a boot. But if you look at Italy now, look how far cocked back it is. And it has like a high heel now. Like this wasn't like this. And look how it's back at like a 45-degree angle now where I was. I remember it not completely perpendicular, but almost. Had maybe like a 20 or a 10-degree angle rather than this like 45-degree angle. Also, if I were to ask you in relation to Australia, where would you say New Zealand is?
Oh man.
In relation to Australia, give me a direction of where New Zealand is, guys. Sullivan's Irish Pub says 90 miles east to southeast. Exactly, Sullivan. That's what many people remember exactly is Cuba being 90 miles southeast of Florida. Yep. So let's see what the chat remembers. So again, I'm asking you, in relation to Australia, where is New Zealand? Be specific with the direction.
That's freaking.
So many people remember New Zealand being to the northeast of Australia.
That's what my man says right here. Yeah. Carl.
New Zealand is now way down here to the southeast of Australia.
And way down too, man. I mean, it's like way down there.
Yeah, it's lower now. And it actually seems that Australia is what's higher because now Africa and South America all have points further south than Australia.
Yeah, man.
So Australia,
New Zealand's like way down.
Yeah, dude. I mean, many people remember it like right up here.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's weird, man.
Yeah. So
Italy thing looks off a little bit. But that I'm telling you, South America being that far to the, I guess, the east, dude, that doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. And New Zealand, I mean, it's like the bottom of the freaking globe, dude.
Yeah. You want to talk about aircrafts?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So if I were to ask you guys real quick, and again, if we don't agree on all of them, that's cool, right? But if you do agree that you remember some of the things that we talked about on the geography, what I can tell you is you can check your map or globe and you will see what I just showed on the screen. No matter what you think of Google Earth, it correlates with what your maps and globes that you have in your house will show you. Okay. All right. What did I say I wanted to get? Oh, aircraft. Yeah. So if I were to ask all of you where the engines on commercial airliners are located in relation to the wings, where would you say? Describe it just like you did the geography. Where are the engines located on commercial airliners? And I'm going to bring up some images in a second. Let me just find my folder for it, and then I'll grab a screen share off you. So again, I'm asking, where are the engines located on commercial airliners? Put it, in relation to the wings.
Well, when Steve or Flav, when you've been doing this for as long as Brian's been doing it, Brian, this guy says you're a fire plug of knowledge. It's you're going to get knowledge by all the research. You know what I'm saying? All right. So
Thank you. And Flavor, FIFA Flav also asked what model. Basically every model, with the exception of one Boeing 737, which won't apply to what I'm going to show. But after we talk about this, you could go to your airport near you and look at all of the commercial aircraft that they have there, and they will all line up with what I'm about to show you. And this goes back decades and decades. So again, even if you have a photograph on a runway in front of an aircraft, okay. So we have under the wing, below the wing, below the wings, tail. I'm talking about in relation to the wings. I know some have it on the underneath, between the wings, under or at the tail, forward, underneath. Okay. So I'm going to show you first residue of what I remember. Okay. So am I sharing? No, I'm not. Right. Okay. So this right here is just a video game. And the reason I'm showing you a video game is because, well, if something's changed, I can't show you a photograph of it, right? I explained that, okay? This is a video game. So this is an artist's conception with graphics program, however they make their video games, right? I'm not an expert on programming video games, but obviously this is an artist thing and it's not an actual photograph. The game's called Just Cause 2, I believe. Not that it even matters what game it is, but it's a PlayStation game. Okay. This is like what I remember. Does this look familiar with you? Is this kind of what you remember commercial airliners looking like? I remember the engines underneath the wings like that. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a couple more. This is all from the game. Okay. Video game. This is what I remember. Okay. Engines underneath the wings. Engines underneath the wings. Engines underneath the wings. I think you guys get the point. Now, though, if you go and look at commercial airliners, what you're going to see is this. Look at the engine. And again, I know what you're going to say. Well, planes are redesigned. I get that. But every single plane at every single airport in the entire country, in the entire world, their engines are going to look like this when you go to check them out. And again, if you have photos going back, and you guys can do your research after and look into what I'm saying, and go look back in the last couple of decades at all these airliners, all the engines are going to be like this. Look at this. These, and I know this isn't the most high resolution shot. This is what you will find when you go look yourself. And if you go to the airport. And on top of it, the image that I just showed you, by the way, it's a double Mandela effect because this used to be Alaskan Airlines.
Yeah, that's Alaskan Airlines, right.
Now it's always been Alaska Airlines. Alaskan Airlines has never existed.
So is there any reason like why they would, I mean, are they just moving the engines on top because more efficiency or something? Or is this just literally a Mandela effect? It was never like that to begin with, what it used to be.
It was never the other way to begin with. It's always been this way.
That's nuts, man.
So, I mean, I've taken many flights, and now the way these engines are, my God, it makes it so much louder and everything. Now they're like, it's like a little bracket holding these things on.
Doesn't that look suspicious? Like, what holds? I mean, I hope that weld's good, right? I mean, that doesn't look safe. That's crazy.
No, I'm gonna come off the screen share for a second. Okay, what are you gonna say?
I said, did you have other pictures other than Alaskan Airlines? I mean, they're all like that now. You're saying
they're all like that? Yep.
Crazy.
All the airlines. Yeah, all the airlines are like that.
Also, all right. So, yeah, right on. Engine got bigger, says Carson and Rumble. Engine got bigger, but even that doesn't. But if engine got bigger, it'd still be seem to be less likely to be like a bracket holding it to push in front of the wing. That seems like it'd be even less likely to change like that. That doesn't make sense. That just looks odd to me. It looks like if someone would propose that to me, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look all that safe.
All right, let's fly through a few brand changes. Like I'm just going to rail them out. I'm not going to ask for people's opinions. I'm just going to rail through them, and then we'll slow it back again and talk about a couple monuments. So things that don't exist. Oh, this one I actually have to talk about a little bit. It's so big. Okay, so and I have something significant on it, and you'll know right away when I bring it up. If I was to ask everybody in the chat, one of the most famous types or brands, however you would phrase it, of avocados in the world, or at least in America. Begins with an H. Type the name of that brand of avocado in the chat, please. Begins with an H. That's the hint I can give you. It's a pretty strong hint. And in fact, like until a couple of years ago, because I don't eat avocados, until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know any of the other types of avocados or brands. Obviously, there are. There's other companies.
So the most famous brand of avocados that begins with an H. A couple of people are saying stuff. All right, let's keep going, guys. Keep going.
Let's let it keep rolling.
So I don't know this. So this will be interesting. Most famous type of avocados that begins with an H.
Oh, you don't know this? Interesting. Okay, cool. Cool, and I'll let that fill up.
A couple in here. Anybody else? It's a consensus. Oh, this consensus. I like, just kind of going back to a word that it's a. I won't say it because you might talk about that later. It begins with a D. It's like we're in a dilemma.
We'll get to that. So what I remember as the most famous brand of avocado or famous type is Haas avocados. HAAS. Now I'm going to go into a screen share and show you something because it's more than just a brand change. So I remember Haas. Can you put my screen up?
Oh yeah. Let me go. There we go.
So I remember caps lock. Haas avocado. Okay. Now, if you type in Haas avocado, you're going to get spell checked. It's a Haas avocado. Now, for me, no way. This was always Haas avocado. And in fact, the guy that owned the company, his name was Rudolf Haas. Now, his family name is Rudolf Haas. It's another German change. Haas in German means to hate, is what I'm told. But on top of this, you want to talk about residue. So one day I'm looking in a, let me come off the screen share. Now I've known about this change for several years, right? And, one day I'm just looking for residue online to make a video or whatever. And I'm searching Haas avocados with the 2 A's, and this ad comes up on Kroger, right? And it shows an image of a frozen bag of Haas avocados. And on the packaging, it's spelled the way I remember, Haas. And it really perplexed me because, well, what did I say? When you photograph these things, the photographs change if the item changes, right? Well, some items, though, are slow with the change. It doesn't all happen at once, okay? So I tried to order this bag of avocados, and it told me that, this product's not available. We can't deliver to the area. I tried 3 different addresses till it eventually said, this product doesn't exist. And it redirected me to an image and an ordering page for the new one. This is the Kroger's grocery store, HASS now, right? So people watching my show that I showed this to decided to help out and go to Kroger's for me, right? And one of them came back with this. This shouldn't even exist. So if we're just misremembering, how do I have this? HAAS. I actually have an unchanged package for whatever reason. This one hasn't changed.
And that was literally ordered from Kroger?
Yeah, they went into the Kroger's and bought it.
Right.
For whatever reason, a bunch of these packages was still spelled this way. Now they're not. Now they're HASS. But if you go into Kroger right now, or if you go to Walmart, again, I'm not asking you things that are too obscure that you can't find out if I'm BSing you, right? You can go to Walmart. Go to Walmart, and if you go there and you see the Haas, which is now Haas avocados, right? So anything official. So if there'll be maybe a red sticker on them on the fruit, right? And it'll say Haas because that's what's coming from the company. If you buy it at those stores, though, their POS system, their computers have not updated yet. They will actually print you, at least Walmart will, print you a receipt for your Haas avocado, and the printed receipt says Haas, which has never existed, and supposedly we have no evidence, and we're just all crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts, man.
Totally nuts. Totally nuts. Another one is Skechers shoes. If you guys know Skechers shoes, spell Skechers in the chat, okay? And I'm just going to keep rolling with a few things. If you know Skechers shoes, spell it in the chat. When you're done with that, if you know Chick-fil-A, spell it in the chat. Okay?
Chick-fil-A is a big one, man. That's
if you know Procter and Gamble company, spell that in the chat. Okay? We're going to go through all of these. Okay? So I'll just give the answers now so we can get going. So if you remember Skechers having a T in the word Skechers, the shoe company, congratulations, your Mandela effect again. The T has been taken out of Skechers, even if you own the shoes and they're sitting in your closet for years. I got Karen B with this a few months ago. She had no idea this changed, and she had to go check her shoes. Skechers. Okay. Chick-fil-A. So many of us, and there's so much evidence of this. You can go online, and there's people that go around and do all these reviews of chicken restaurants. CHIC. Many of us remember it's CHIC. Chick-fil-A. So people would pronounce it like chic to try and remember how to spell it. Now it's always just been chick, C-H-I-C-K.
I remember like Susie. This is how I remember Chick-fil-A. I remember just like that, Chick-fil-A, man.
Yep, and they're not the only one. People remember it that way as well. It's never been that either. It's always been CHICK.
See, that
Now,
doesn't make sense. Why would they? That's what I always, because I saw you do this one. I was like, why would they spell Chick-fil-A Chick? It would make sense to
yeah.
spell it differently. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I'll address the chat. Rob Glow says maybe these brands change their name for SEO purposes. Rob Glow, then you would be able to easily go and find any one of these things I'm reporting as changes and show that, hey, this is when the company changed the name. All of that is well documented. I'll give you a hint. Logopedia is one site that's great for covering that. There's many other avenues to go, but you will find out that no, this is not a change that the company made. Procter and Gamble is another.
I was going to say, yes, that's a big one. That's
Procter and Gamble used to be Proctor, Proctor, named after a guy named William Proctor. Okay, and I'm just going to bring this up on the screen. Show you. I'm going to show you a few things here because I got some significant residue on this one.
I'm knowing you're sharing it.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. So we're going to go to Google again, and if I was to type Procter and Gamble,
like it does a
look at spell check to Proctor with an ER. This was never with an ER, dude. And if you go to look at William Proctor, of course, his name's going to be changed as well. So Proctor. No, this is a different guy. This is a football player or something. This is the one right here. William Proctor with an ER. Now, on top of that, dude, I have, and I could show some of it here. I have patents for this company for different products that they have, uploaded scans of patents. So uploaded scans of books and newspapers and a lot of other documentation seems to remain as great evidence. We go back on some of these changes with hundreds of years of newspaper archives to prove them. But with this one, okay, one of my friends pulled out a bunch of patents, which I'd like to get into. So look at this. U.S. patent 3608039. Dated 1971, 1968 it was filed, and it was patented in 1971. Keep that in mind. So it takes a few years for these to go through, and there's a reason I'm showing you that. Look at assignee, the proctor with an OR. It's all over the patents, dude. It's all over the old patents. In fact, look at here. Again, this is 1995, Proctor, OR. In fact, I have a whole folder of these, and I can show. Look at this. I have a whole folder of these. I mean, we would be here all night. Okay. But I want to show you something significant about the dates. So check this out. Again, 1972, 1970, Proctor with an OR. So again, so so they just got it wrong and all these legal things, these patents that they need for their products. And it just so happens to match Brian and his mismemory and his crazy Mandela people. No, it was OR. And again, if the company just changed the name, you could pull any Procter & Gamble cleaning product or anything out from under your sink. It's going to be spelled with an ER. Now, let me show you something here. So I think that this change happened around 2013 going into 2014. And I'm going to show you why I think that. Because any of these patents filed before 2013 are OR. Anything after 2014 is ER. And here's an example of it. Yeah, so this was 2014. Yeah. So look at when they applied for it in early 2014, OR. Look at on the very same patent. Yeah. It has it as ER when it ended up being assigned. Filed 2013, right? And then the final date is 2014 when it was assigned. So sometime between December 5th, 2013 and December 9th, 2014, I think that that's when this one had changed.
Could you think, so Jeff says slightly changing their identity is what all big business models do. Do you think that's something to do with it?
So if my name was William Proctor with an OR, my company was Procter & Gamble, why the hell would I go through changing the name to Proctor with an ER, which phonetically sounds the same, makes no impact product-wise, and why would that change my last name all the way throughout recorded history? This has nothing to do with it.
On top of that, but it says William Proctor OR never existed. It says it's ER to begin with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another example. Look at 2014, it was filed. So, yeah, maybe it was later in the year. The second half of the year, 2014, maybe is when this change happened, right around that time frame. And look, Proctor with an OR. And then later on in 2015, when it's finally assigned, Proctor with an ER. Well, Proctor with an OR never existed. Who are these people?
Yeah. So that I get what the guy's saying, but I'm just like, but the guy who's the namesake of the company didn't have an OR in today's reality, though. Chef Jeff is literally now ER. So he didn't go back in time to change his name to keep his name constant with the change of the company. It's like the company right there. We just showed it. Brian just showed it. Said in 2013 they filed an OR. 2014 is issued with an ER. But the guy who's the founder of it, his name hasn't been changed. I mean, it was always OR, and now it's ER. So talk about but it's like the VW thing. It's like there are small potato stuff that doesn't make
sense.
Dude,
I just literally, not even joking, talk about a synchronicity. I literally just opened that up on my screen. Look, I'm about to get into that right now. So give me a screen share.
Yeah, there you go.
I have my folder right here. Let me move this out of the way so I can explain this for a second for people. So for me, right, this is anchor memory time. Ready? So many logos have changed from the Mandela effect, but many companies do update their logos all the time. There's new fonts that are introduced, all this stuff. I recognize that, and I'm not saying that there's not people that put out bad Mandela effects that are companies and logos and brands that change, right? I don't do that on my channel, okay? Could a mistake be made? Sure. And if I make one, point it out. I haven't made that type of mistake yet, okay? So for me, my first car was a 1987 Acura Integra. I bought it in 97. I was a teenager, 17. But when I was 19, I bought my first brand new car off the lot. And that was a 1997 Volkswagen Jetta GT. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what I remember the Volkswagen logo being on my car. Okay. And I washed my car all the time. I ordered parts for it. I was a 19-year-old kid with a brand new car, and I loved that car for a little while. Okay. This is what I remember the Volkswagen logo looking like. Now, this is somebody's human artwork, craftsmanship, something they made out of wood. Volkswagen has become iconic because it's a very cultural thing, like the hippie movement and all that. So you have artwork everywhere depicting it, right? Here's the VW logo that I remember. Okay. V and the W merged inside a circle. Okay. I'll show you just a couple more. Also, here is somebody with a tattoo of it. Again, this is what I remember. But in this reality, the VW logo, and I'll show you a side by side, is now this. Yeah. It's always had a break in it. And in many instances, the break is even more significant looking. This logo has never existed now. Now it's always been this one. Okay? There was never a gap here. Never a gap here on my car. Now, again, I know what people say. Well, companies and logos change name. Yeah, right. Okay, so please, if you own a Volkswagen and you remember this logo, go outside and have a look at it, because you're gonna have a break on your emblem now, on your own car. Okay, and also there's a second Mandela effect here. So when I used to have that car, and I would want to order parts for that car, okay. Volkswagen, okay, had two spellings. There was this spelling that I just typed, Volkswagen. That was the American spelling. And there was this spelling in Germany. And I don't know what other countries had this and what other countries had this, but I know this was German, in German, and this was American. So if you were to order parts in a parts catalog, because this was kind of before the internet, I know it was like 99, but the internet wasn't what it is now. I would look in car part catalogs. I would have to know if I was spelling it this way or the other way based on if I wanted American or German parts. Now, in this reality, this is the only spelling that's ever even existed. There has never been the ON spelling in Volkswagen. And I know, based off my anchor memory of having to look for car parts for it, that it was like that. Look at this emblem over here on the right. Look how dumb that looks. Yeah. That's what it's always been now. And many automobile manufacturers have changed. Kia, for instance, which did recently redesign their logo. Yeah. But before they redesigned it, which is a documented change, before they redesigned it, it was already Mandela affected. So Kia used to be KIA on the back of any Kia. Now, if you look at a Kia logo, first of all, there's the new one. This is the new one. We're not going to address that yet, okay? But this right here is what it's always been on all the old Kias and every Kia until just a couple years ago, okay? Like this, with no crossbar on the A. They call this a lambda. It's a Greek letter. And this is something we see pop up a lot with this Mandela effect. And by the way, the second variant of the thing that rolled out 3 years ago was called the Lambda variant. Okay, so it's like this was being thrown in our face for a while. So originally, this was an A. Got Mandela affected. If you own a Kia, go outside and look. There will be no crossbar on your A. Okay, now in the last couple of years, they took that logo and they made this. This is a redesign. This isn't a second Mandela effect. So if you look up, hey, did Kia ever change their logo? You will find yes, but please read the details because it's when they changed it from that one to this one. But there has been never been a Kia logo with an A. It's always missing the crossbar now.
But it used to have the crossbar is what you're saying.
It used to have the crossbar for, 10, 15 years or whatever, but then it got Mandela affected out of reality. Now it's never been there. And then to convolute it, I think, honestly, in my opinion, the company went and made this documented logo change where they've taken this screwed up A already, this Lambda, and they've tilted it like this. So let me ask people another question, real quick one. Most famous museum in America begins with an S. I want 2 words from you. Most famous museum in America, and it begins with an S. I want 2 words, two-word name, please.
What city's in might help people.
I'm not even sure. Is it in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah. D.C.
Yeah. Yeah. Famous museum, Washington, D.C. The dinosaur bones are there, right? Yeah, exactly. Begins with an S and it's 2 words. The most famous museum. Please type it in the chat. 2 words, please, Susie Cream. The title has 2 words. 2 words, please, Melissa. No, that is 1 word that you both have there. What's the second word? Begins with an I. And now I'll shut up and let everybody fill it in.
Grounder, what's up, buddy? So you got a lot of people answering.
Yep. So I'll roll now. I know they're on a delay. So anybody that said the Smithsonian Institute, you are all wrong. It's never been the Smithsonian Institute. It's now always been the Smithsonian Institution. Also, there's a place called the Brookings Institute, which has also turned to the institution. Now, here's another one, another government type of thing, right? Government agency. This one should be easy. Real quick. DEA. What's it stand for? The DEA in the United States. The people that, do the work on the drugs. I'll give you the first word. Drug. DEA. What's it stand for? 3 words, obviously. DEA. And this one, the residue, it's literally everywhere. Every movie you could imagine, stuff on cartels, TV shows, all of it, okay? All of it.
My phone fills it in as institute, and it's not institute anymore.
And it's not institute. And we'll talk about the phone, not catching up on the updates in a minute. It's some good stuff there. So I see answers coming in. I see Drug Enforcement Agency, Drug Enforcement Agency, Drug Enforcement Agency, Drug Enforcement Agency, Drug Enforcement Agency. And I just want to let you know that you're all wrong, but you're not crazy and you're not stupid because I know it was Drug Enforcement Agency. Now, in this reality, it's always been the Drug Enforcement Administration. And no, they didn't change their name. Go ahead and look through the history of these.
Never been agency.
Never been the Drug Enforcement Agency in this reality. You all answered that one down the line.
That was CDC.
Yep. Other people, so there's been people's names that have changed. Many people remember the person that played Superman as Christopher Reeves. He's now Christopher Reeve. Many people remember the famous pastor from New Orleans that wouldn't let the people in his church during the flood as Joel Osteen.
Wait, he actually did that? He wouldn't let the people during Joel Osteen did?
Yeah, that was a lot of the heat he was taking. Yeah, during Katrina.
Really?
Yeah, that mega church. He closed the doors. Yeah. Well, Joel Osteen doesn't exist, so don't worry about it. He's now Joel Osteen.
So it's no longer O.L.Steen. It's now Osteen, is what you're saying.
Just Osteen. I'll have people answer a few more. I don't want to rail through too many without having them answer. Little yellow books. So say you were going to cheat for a test, you didn't study, you're going to go get the little yellow books, and it's like a summary of a certain topic, and they had them at bookstores. Yellow and black began with the letter C. Type the name of those books in there. It was like a short summary for you to catch up on a topic. If somebody starts giving you an in-depth explanation of something, you'll be like, just give me the blank on it. Begins with the C.
Remember that. Yep. Okay. We got some people. All right, there you go. Yep. Wrong again, Jeremy. Jeremy.
Yeah. So I always remember it to be Cliff Notes.
Yep.
It's now Cliff's Notes.
Yep.
A few more German changes. If you guys are familiar with the comic strip, The Peanuts, featuring Charlie Brown and all the other characters.
Oh, that's a big one right here. Yeah. Right here.
Yeah. So type for me the name of the author of The Peanuts. I'll give you his first name and his middle initial. Charles M.
Charlie Brown.
Who authored The Peanuts? Had his signature at the bottom all the time. Yep. Charles M.
This one right here, man. It's crazy. And here's my little Snoopy right here. Here he is. Hey, Snoopy.
All right, I am gonna go and get a screen share to show people some of this. Right. So I'll tell you what I remember. I remember what I'm seeing people type in here, for the most part, not everybody, but I remember Charles M. Schultz.
Yep.
But Charles M. Schultz is now Charles M. Schulz in this reality.
Yeah, see, that's freaking that right there. It's
ridiculous to me.
It's absolutely ridiculous. All the freaking Snoopy and the cartoons, the newspaper, and all that stuff is never Charles without a T ever. They all can kiss my butt. That's all there is to it. That is a freaking change that is. I was actually a cat. Yes, this is a cat now. That's right, man. It's not a dog. CDC. You got to talk about the CDC.
That one's a little tricky because it does have a documented change, but it predates what it should. But until I'll just explain it. So for me until just around the time that the thing rolled out a couple of years ago, the CDC for me stood for the Center for Disease Control. Now it's been the Centers for Disease Control since like 1972 or 1974, which predates when I was even born. So my whole life it's been centers, plural now, but I never saw it as centers until about 3 or 4 years ago. So, and that's another one that's tied to the thing, as well as the HIPAA Act. The HIPAA Act, the HIPAA Act is tied right into what's been going on. And the HIPAA Act, used to be.
I'm sure we got HIPAA Act, guys. You remember that one?
Yeah.
HIPAA.
Yeah, type it in the chat, the acronym for the HIPAA Act, which was.
Remember HIPAA? We all know this. It's catching up these last couple of years. Crazy.
Yeah, supposed to protect your health privacy is basically what it was about. And, what I remember for HIPAA is HIPPA, okay? But now HIPAA is HIPAA. And in fact, look what the acronym stands for. So the P that's missing is the P that stood for privacy.
Privacy, exactly.
The privacy is now not in the title of the HIPAA Act. And now you lost your health privacy.
It's the whole thing about HIPAA was for privacy. I didn't know that until you just pointed this out. They got rid of privacy on there. That's freaking nuts. And they didn't change the law. It's just been Mandela affected. All right. So we got to talk about what you think is happening, Brian.
Sure.
What is so? Just as a side note, initially when I heard this stuff, I was like, man, this I don't like it. Now I'm actually say again.
I didn't say anything. No, I didn't say anything.
Okay. But now I'm like, nah, there's more to the story. It's actually not a bad thing. And what do you tell us? What do you think?
Sure. I'll give you my theories. I would like to show just one more before we do, because I think it's such a big one. So if I were to ask you guys, like we did with the Monopoly Man and other things, to describe King Tut's mask, what's the significant features that stand out on the mask of King Tutankhamun? You guys tell me what that is in the chat right now, and I'll even give you more of a hint if I need to. What would you say is on his head? What stands out to you about what is on the head of the King Tut mask? And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my folder. Okay.
What's on the
head
of the King Tut mask?
Yeah, the big features on the what stands out to you about King Tut's mask. So I'm seeing answers coming now. I'm gonna wait. Yeah, I'm looking for not material, like animal type ideas. What stands out about his mask? So I'll just tell you now, because I know we've been on a little bit of a delay. I'm going to show you a replica first, which correlates with what I remember, and so does tons of residue everywhere. I've covered this in depth. I remember King Tut looking mostly like this, and this is not the real one. This is a replica. I remember like this with a cobra in the center of his forehead. Okay, center of his forehead. Again, this isn't American media. This is ancient Egyptian archaeology, right? And I'm not claiming to know the dates on how old these things really are, nor do I trust anything I would be told. But I will say mad old, right? Okay, so that's what I remember. Okay, and I could show you all sorts of other depictions like that. Okay, well, that's actually of the same one. But let's just get to what King Tut currently looks like right now. So if you remember the snake in the center of his head like I do, you're Mandela affected again. And look what he has. A snake and a bird, and it's not even symmetrical now. On the actual King Tut, on the actual mask of King Tut.
He's got a snake and a bird, and the bird's kind of like off-center like that?
Yep.
Oh, man, that doesn't make sense.
And, they say it's thousands of years old. I don't know. Could be a couple hundred, could be a couple thousand. But either way, it's mad old. It's got nothing to do with companies and logos and brands changing names. It's got nothing to do with American media. But yeah,
kidneys.
we did.
Kidneys, Brian. Kidneys.
Oh, yeah. So biological changes, anatomy changes. Yeah. So if I were to ask you people why a kidney punch is illegal in boxing, what would you say the reason for that is?
Kidney punch is illegal in boxing.
Why is a kidney punch illegal in boxing? And so I always remember that, kidney punch was illegal in boxing for a certain reason, because it could do lots of damage. And what is the reason why a kidney would be susceptible to a lot of damage in a boxing match? So, okay, now I see Fever says you can kill someone. I should be more specific now. You're right. That is what they say. You could kill someone. Where is the kidney located that would make it susceptible to such a punch?
Yeah, where is the kidney? Exactly.
Where is the kidney, and why is it vulnerable? If you guys could tell me where the kidney is. So I remember the kidney punch being illegal in boxing because your kidney was like right down here in your lower back, basically completely exposed. So if you were to get punched there, it could get punctured, or other things could happen to it. You could seriously be in some serious trouble right here. Your kidney is now up here, and it's actually behind a few of the bones. It's like inside of your rib cage. So there's actually bone in the way now, in front of your kidney. It's not down here anymore, that's a wild one for me.
Yeah. Because you never hit someone in the back because there's a kidney right there, man. I mean, it's always in boxing. You can never hit behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's get into theories. I know people want to hear it. And so here's some things I can tell you about the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect, of course, from my opinion, right? Mandela effect is 100% real. There are changes to this reality. And on top of that, everybody is affected by at least a good amount of them. There are, because everybody lives in this reality, and this reality is in flux. My take, and we're going to get more into it. So that's what I can say for sure. What I can't say for sure is if my theory is correct, right? I mean, who am I? And if you have a different belief on what this might be, and we'll talk about pretty much all the major theories right now. That's cool, man. We are totally on the same page as long as you're open-minded enough and you'll come into the awareness with yourself to trust yourself, trust your experience. This is some of the things a lot of people learned on these journeys of truth, but then they shut down when it comes to this. Trust your experiences, trust your senses, trust your observations, trust your anchor memories. They aren't failing you. It's reality that's failing, okay? Now, when you first hear about the Mandela effect, the first thing you'll hear about is CERN. the particle collider.
Yeah.
You'll hear that it's CERN doing it, because here's what happens. And you'll notice this. If you look into this topic, you'll notice exactly what I'm seeing. So you can Google Mandela effect, or you can be like me and sign up for the Google alert. So every article that comes out, I get emailed and I read through them. I don't read through them all, but I'm saying when I want to, right? And they all say the same thing. They'll all start out with the story about Nelson Mandela dying in jail, that some people remember. That has nothing to do with anything. I know some people remember that. I don't even talk about that. So never mind the name of it being Mandela effect. Never mind Nelson Mandela. Never mind this character they prop up, Fiona Broome, as the person that coined the term in 2009. I cover this topic as extensively as anybody, but not just me. All the people I know and the people that have been covering it before me, because I'm not the first of the game. Not one of them has ever talked to this Fiona Broome character. Think about that. Think about in the circles you're in and the different things you look into. If there was a character propped up as the person that brought it forth, and not one person you know in your circle has ever had a word with that alleged character. I don't even know if it's a real person. Okay. But what they'll do is they'll present the Mandela effect. They'll show you things like Pokemon and Monopoly Man, Mirror, right? They'll show you things that are legit Mandela effects, but they'll never talk about the Bible changes, geography, or anything like that, even the bigger history stuff. So they kind of leave you in a place where if they don't outright say it's false memory, which many of them will, most will, they leave you in a place thinking, well, it's just this little memory game, and maybe these companies did change. You know how they're able to pull it off? There's some things they omit, O-M-I-T. They don't. How dishonest is it to, whether you agree with this or not, how dishonest is it to not even mention that we have this physical residue, all the artwork, all the newspaper archives, all the parodies, all the skit. It's not even mentioned at all, nor is the theory of what I think this is, nor anything related to what I think this is ever mentioned. What they'll do is they want to convince you it's not happening, but if you do realize that it's happening, then you will realize then what will happen is they'll try and push you in the direction of CERN, or push you in the direction of D-Wave computers, okay? Or we live in a simulation. And I don't believe any of those things. I don't look at CERN as any more legitimate than their fake space station, okay? Which, yes, by the way, that's absolute nonsense. And I know you've introduced your audience already to some of these types of ideas. So for people that were wondering, I've known for a very long time that NASA is completely fraudulent. I don't trust CERN, and I've seen the obvious agenda to try and hide the supernatural, to try and hide creation, to try and hide the creator. And if you do realize that these things exist in this realm, they want you to attribute it to their man and their machines and their science, and it's them and somehow doing it. So I think that's an obvious way that they're trying to lay claim to it. A lot of people talk about time travel, timelines. Did we come from an old Earth to a new Earth? So let's talk about those, because those don't have to involve government entities or anybody trying to mislead you, right? If those things are happening, they're happening. But I don't think they're happening. Why? Well, some of these changes, first of all, when these changes happen, they're still happening. So it's not like we came from one place, got here, and everything was tweaked and a little bit different. The changes happen incrementally. We've seen some things change and change back. Also, we don't agree on all the same changes. So it's more about, this is one reality that we're having an individual experience perceiving how this reality is presented to us, in my opinion. Okay. So also, for the same reason, we have all this residue, right? So why would the residue, why would all this physical evidence be sitting here if it's never existed that way here? It's always been a different way, right? Same thing with the time travel. Same thing with the old Earth, new Earth. So now we'll get to what I think it is. I think, and it's going to sound preposterous to a lot of people that haven't really looked at this yet, because you're still in the box where, well, why would it change this little insignificant thing? My entire neighborhood's Mandela affected. The name of my neighborhood that I live in, the city where Ed McMahon's from, the neighborhood has a completely different name than it always has. And I made a video 4 years ago, a series of videos breaking this down. The people living in the neighborhood still haven't taken the update yet, and they still call it a name in which it's never been. Okay. This is very pervasive into all aspects of life. I've shown you the jet engines hanging off. I've shown you that this changes in your Bible. It's not just little things. They'll try and box us in there and say it's little things. But I think that this is, for the most part, a wake-up call from the creator that created this realm, to wake up to that there's so much more than the physical. I know that everything I've ever looked at presented by the people that control most of the physical realm is completely fake and artificial. And again, You know, I don't trust the DEA. I don't trust the CDC. I mean, all these things. I don't trust Joel Osteen, right? Yet there's these Mandela effects that keep highlighting frauds and deceptions within this reality. I think that most of it is coming from the creator. I'm open to ideas that our consciousness could be causing some of this as a collective consciousness. But on that note, I think that if that is the case, I think most of it would be accidental by us as of right now, because we don't know how to harness that yet. I think more maybe group experiments need to be done where a lot of us are working on that or whatever. But I do think most of it is from the creator. Now, there are a lot of people that think it's Satan. Particularly most of my Christian friends, as you could understand some of the things that are in the Bible, why they would think it's Satan. Satan's changing the Bible. It talks about, there's a lot of things. Now it talks about Jesus says, bring my enemies before me and I will slay them. There's all sorts of things that people are very offended by in there, right? So I understand that perspective, but let me give you another perspective. What if it's the creator changing the Bible to show you that, hey, maybe you shouldn't idolize this book so much?
That's 100%. Absolutely.
And I don't, I don't think that, Satan is moving land masses. And I don't think Satan would have the power to change things within your anatomy, never mind the other things in this reality. So I think that Satan or the bad guy or whatever has pretty much domain over the artificial fabricated reality, from the medical system to the media to the fake history to the political systems and all of it. That's his realm. But there's more to this place. And the creator's showing that. And also, I don't think we're dead in the ground when we're done here. I think we do go somewhere else. I do think reincarnation might be real. Again, all theories, right? Reincarnation might be real. And maybe we live this experience and we have to get to a certain point of recognizing the supernatural or spiritual growth, or however you want to phrase it, before we can graduate out of here. Maybe we come back and repeat several times. And maybe when we do, maybe that's also part of the reason for some of the so-called smaller, insignificant changes. Maybe because it has to be enough different in this reality when we come back that we're not triggered into some kind of deja vu moment or whatever. Also, I think that, and I've seen this happen, so I'm pretty sure that this happens, I think that we are constantly observed by both sides. And what I see happen is I see the Mandela effects coming from God, and I see what we call the update coming from the other guy. Now, many times you'll present something to somebody, and what'll happen is, hey, Ed McMahon, blah, blah, blah. And they'll tell me, Publishers Clearinghouse, giant checks. And then I'll tell them that's never happened. And I'll tell them the new reality. And then they'll just be like, oh, yeah, it's always been that. And so that's like completely rolling with the change and taking the update. But sometimes it happens on a deeper level where it's almost like these people are possessed. Like I brought the Mr. Rogers up when I tried to get a guy at a piano bar to play it in Florida a few weeks ago. It was crazy what went down and the reaction that I got. And all I can think, because I tried to get him to play the Mandela affected song because I knew he would sing it the old way, right? And by the time, and they kept passing around, they wouldn't play it. It was like something dark took over him. He kept talking about it. Then I brought him up the Jules song, which is also Mandela affected. And this guy got like really, really triggered. I think that our consciousness is being observed, and the people, it can happen to me. It can happen to you. But for the most part, we're immune to it because we're vibrating at a different level. But I do think that these people that believe all the lies, that don't care about truth, that never question anything, right? They are very susceptible to having their consciousness almost like a possession interceded with to make them not see the changes in this reality. And again, speaking of brand changes, right? A guy that I do shows with, you've seen me do shows with Nathan probably, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's this guy, Nathan Sanders, I do show with. Brilliant guy, very well spoken. He's been at this topic for years like me. He doesn't do all the content that I do, but he comes on my show a lot. Yeah. Very, very deep thinker. He's been trying to wake his sister up to this for many years. I mean, he even had a line in the play that he wrote for Broadway have a Mandela effect in it. And he even went around and asked the people, that the actors in his play and everything, to recite the line. They all remembered it the old way in his own play. Well, he's been trying to wake his sister up for this for years. She wouldn't have it. And then one day she noticed that the spelling of Imodium ID, AD, whatever it is, it's like a stomach medicine, was in her purse, and it lost an M. And now it was spelled different. Instead of having a double M, it only has one M. And because of that, just like because of my little cousin with the Pokemon,
yeah, right.
they're in now, and they're ready to accept that something's happening. So no change is insignificant. If
That's
there's a
exactly what I'm saying. It's Stouffer's that got me, man. You see what I'm saying? So then you say, wait, but see, here's the thing, Brian. Here's where I think people make a mistake. I think they attribute it to Satan. And they say, oh, this is evil because the Bible changed it. I completely disagree. I think this is God saying, refocus on, look, I love the Bible, but this isn't God. This is not God. You know what I'm saying? God is beyond a book. And this is my personal opinion. I think God's saying, no. Refocus on me, the creator.
God's here in your heart. He's not on paper. Paper can change. And I know this is going to offend people, but if physical reality can change in this manner, then the ink on the paper in the Bible is no different than the cover of the Berenstain Bears book.
And God, in my opinion, is sitting there saying, I'm calling out to you with these obvious things for you to investigate. Now, you can say it's Satan, but no, because that means Satan has control over the whole realm. And I don't think he does.
I don't believe that. And that's getting into the ridiculous fear-mongering that literally has no basis.
What I'm saying.
And you'll notice when you start to look at this, if you get into, in the beginning phases of the Mandela effect, which is obviously years ago for most people, but you will see there's a lot of fear in the beginning because people don't know what's going on, and they're promoted with the push with the CERN idea. Oh, they turned CERN on in July. In July when they announced they turned CERN on again, like last July, I knew this was going to happen. Then all of a sudden you have all these people coming on Facebook, and they're like, oh, they just turned CERN on, and now King Tut just changed, and Chick-fil-A just changed, and I'm like, that stuff changed 7 years ago. Like, no, you're being baited into that.
It just gives away your own power. And I hate that crap because it's the fear mongering. And I just don't believe our creator wants us to live in fear of anything but him. You see what I'm saying? And I don't, and that's, if we're living in fear, it's kind of like the whole thing, like, if Trump doesn't get elected or Biden doesn't get, I don't care what side of the political, I literally could care less, but it's like, I'm like, man, they're going to come and steal our, we live in so much fear of everything. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, all right, if it happens, it's going to happen. There's really not much you can do about it. So to sit there and worry, well, that goes against the book itself anyway. And I don't know. It bothers me when people say it's a satanic thing from the Mandela effect. And I'm like, I completely disagree. I think it's a wake-up call to say, hey, hear me out. I'm giving you things that aren't true that have changed on you. So you can say, wait, something's amiss here. What is it? And then turn to me. That's just the way I fear it. And as such, fear is not from God. Exactly. And we all have different opinions on what the creator is. But the interesting thing is we all know there's a creator, where that's what I think separates us from like the atheists who don't think so. And Brian, I tell you, man, I've yet to meet a truther who's like an atheist. You know what I'm saying? It's very interesting. The more you get out of the truth tidbits, the more.
I know a couple, but they act pretty weird and even suspicious.
Well, you've been around this a lot longer than I have, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there's not many, man. There's not many.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring this whole thing to people to say, look. And look, people they're going to come to it on their own. You came to it on your own. I came to it on my own. So actually, it's funny because I came on it. I used to listen to Jack Spurkle and their survival podcast. We used to have Curtis Stone on. I listened to Curtis Stone who talked about Owen Benjamin. So I listened to Owen Benjamin, like this over like 10-year time. And I came to you. I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. You see what I'm saying? And it's just funny how things happen by chance. I don't know. But all I know is have an open mind to say, especially after these last 3 years, Brian. How can people sit there and say, nah, man, everything is on the up and up after these last 3 years? I don't get it. How can people be so close-minded? I'm like, did you not know what just happened?
Speaking of these things tying into 3 years, and that's why I was so taken aback by the Matthew 18:20, where 2 or more are gathered, changing to 2 or 3 are gathered just before this thing rolled out. But then in the videos on my channel, in about July of 2020, so we're still pretty early into the thing, right? I made a video. Is the Rona psyop? Hold on. I have it right here. Right here. So I'm going to go into a screen share. So I'll show people my channel a little bit while we talk. So this is on my Bible playlist. Supernatural scripture, right? So is the Mandela effect changing scripture to push the Rona psyop? I literally came out on this video, which was August 2nd, actually. August 2nd, 2020. Okay. I came out on this video. and not only showed all the evidence of all these pastors and preachers. This is archive.org. Excellent place to find video clips of all of these people quoting things in the way they used to be, from pastors to people on television shows and all of it. So I made a video showing a lot of this two or more gathered residue. But I also said in this video that I believe that some of the politicians and the controllers are going to use this Mandela affected scripture to manipulate Christians into fear. Right? I literally said that. Yeah. And then a few months later, okay, it's actually in this video. So I addressed that first. And then in this video, it had already happened. So this is in August 2nd of 2020. I made this, August 20th of 2020. I made this video showing it. And Governor Holcomb of Indiana comes out, right?
Yes.
And he says, he says just like this to everybody on the TV, right? He comes out and he's like, well, the Bible doesn't say, he says, the Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered, not where 2 or 300 are gathered. Now, I'm not saying it ever said 2 or 300, but it said 2 or more as an unlimited gathering. So he's telling you specifically, it says 2 or 3, not 2 or 300. Stay in your house. Jesus would wear a mask and all of this stuff, using the Mandela affected scripture to manipulate people. And I called it to a T, and then it happened. And again, people say this is insignificant. Who cares if the Monopoly man doesn't have a monocle? Another one, too. I know there's some people in your chat that'll resonate with it. Planets wasn't in the Bible, okay? So, yeah, I knew that NASA was a hoax as far back as 2011. I did a show debunking Apollo in 2011. I've known that the Earth's not. I'll put all this stuff out there now. You people have been listening. If this stuff turns you off now, hey, it is what it is. But I've known we don't live on a globe since 2014. That's before the so-called flat earth movement on YouTube. So I know this stuff. And I also saw everything come up. And I saw the Christian-based globe versus flat discussions about the different verses in the Bible to talk about an immovable earth and all this. But what would always go, the conversation would go to the next level. Planets aren't even in the Bible. No person ever came back and said, you guys are wrong. Here it is right here. Planets is in the KJV, where wandering stars or constellations used to be in Kings 2, 23:5. So all sorts of changes. Let me see if I have a couple other ones up here. I've shown, of course, some of the people that are the most well-known in the truth communities for the Bible, and I've shown how affected they are. Let's see, real quick. I just want to show people my channel. Yeah. So if you go to my YouTube channel, what you'll find at the top, Dose of Reality Show. Okay. I put all my videos on this list, and typically the newest stuff is at the top. There's over 1,300 videos here, but I have over 2,000. Okay. YouTube's taken down that many videos of mine. Here's my short list, which is the thing I really want to show you the most. I have 125 videos here. Each one is about one change. So we talked about Black Tom. We talked about the Thinker. Matthew 18:20. Forrest Gump, just like Mirror Mirror in international versions, he still says life is like a box of chocolates in the dubbed over audio. Yet in the movie, it now says life was like a box of chocolates. Geography, historical changes, Bible, Smithsonian, Mr. Rogers. You can see I have everything we discussed on here, plus a lot more. So I suggest people go through the list, see something you would know either way, and watch the video. And I'll put a
link on the because I also like the Mandela Effect, the playlist that you have. I think it's pretty interesting, guys. And Brian has done more on this than literally. I follow a lot of people who do Mandela Effects. Money back. But Brian, you've done more on this than anyone. That's why I want you on here, because I'm like, man, to talk about the depth of information that you bring to the table on this stuff, it's nuts. And I this is going to sound crazy. I bet you know more about the Bible than a lot of self-professed Christians do. You know what I'm saying? And and see, this is the issue. I think a lot of Christians are negligent on, myself included. Which until I had anyway, I won't get into it. But we don't even know the book, and if we don't know the book, how can you defend it? If that makes sense. And as a Christian, I'm saying, and it's if you don't know it, you can't defend it, and you got to know it by reading it and actually contemplating it. And I don't think a lot of Christians do. I just think they kind of regurgitate what they're told, and that leads us to that stupid Holcomb sitting there. The Bible says 2 or 3. Like, yeah, dude. See, that's anyway. Man, I got to get out of here, Brian. I got to hit the pod. But this is fantastic. I will put links in the show notes. Man, you kick ass, brother. I'll put links in the show notes to all this stuff. I got to go to the bathroom pretty bad, if you know what I'm saying.
Thank you. And if anybody hears this audibly or it goes somewhere where there's no link, Brian S. Stavely, like you see on there, and I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Rumble. I stream there a lot.
Yep.
Rumble, Rockfin, Facebook, Odyssey, BitChute, YouTube. I'm on all of them, so you can probably easily find me. But thanks for having me on, and
right on, man. And everyone,
yeah,
you're kicking ass, Brian. Keep doing what you're doing, man. God bless, brother. I'll email you later on. I'm going to hit the bathroom. I'm going to get out of here, guys. I got to go potty, and I got to take my dogs outside, too. So God bless. Thanks, Brian. You're the man.
Cool, buddy.
I'll drop the links, everybody. Yeah, I will. Don't worry about it. Fever. Jeff, I'll drop the links. Appreciate y'all being here. Is Brian on Rumble? Yeah, 100%. Man. I'm going to go to the bathroom right now. Right. Poop my pants. All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks again for being here.